recording. Okay, so we should be here. Okay, cool. So yeah, so let's begin. Yeah, so I'm Zen. I play in Plus R. She's a lot of fun, and I know you have all played to like varying degrees, going from like dabbling to playing her in the past to just starting to coming from her from Strive to like doing full lab work and science and stuff. So so what I wanted to do with today is so like you can get a lot of theory and data on like dust loop and such sources, combo videos and whatnot. I wanted to focus on going through each of her tools like in a practical sense, like how to use them in practical situations and in common situations you'd find yourself in various key matchup situations. But I will be starting from just like the basics of how to move with her, just all of her movement options, because I didn't learn some from movement options until like way later into playing her and stuff like that. So yeah, so generally I'll go over like her general game plan, then go into movement, then how to use her moves, and then from there I'll kind of open the floor to questions or matchup specific interactions if you guys have any. Otherwise I'll just demo a bunch of like weird situations and unintuitive things. And like I mentioned earlier, like feel free to stop me anytime if you have questions or like something's not clear or if you want to go back or anything. Yeah, so this is she's a lot of fun, as you know. She's really cool. She has a guitar. Her general game plan, like something that I still default to if I really don't know what's going on, like saying like the Bridget matchup, to be honest, is I'll kind of like create space, because here I can kind of poke and harass from range, and if I can get them to like block a note, set them to block. So if I can get the opponent to block a note, then I can get in for free and start applying a mix-up while they're busy blocking it. So like, my general default thing is if I don't know what to do, I'll try to get them to like block a note, and from there I can that's like one condition I can use to like win neutral. That's one win condition for me. Another is to like use my movement, so apart from hover dashes, which is kind of unwieldy compared to like a run, which you can freely FD break and whatnot. There's a bunch of advantages and disadvantages with this thing in neutral, but as we'll go over the movement section, we'll talk about different ways you can move around the screen, make use of her options, her 2 air dashes, and etc. Things like that. So yeah, that's sort of like the general overview of how I would go about playing her and how I suggest her to like players that are looking to level up their Eno game. So I'll start by talking about like movement options. So she does have walk, which I pretty much only use after like tick throws, or if I want to try to like bait a response from the opponent. Like say if I'm around this range, I might kind of walk a bit before like pressing some other +1 block move or something, just to try and gauge their habits. And finally, you'd also use it for like small micro adjustments and combos, but like we can get into that later. As you know, she's got this hover dash, like it's one of her defining traits. Some useful things to know about the hover dash that are not obvious. So on frame 4 of the hover dash, like your whole hurt box will lift off the ground. It looks something like this. So like you can go over low stuff starting on frame 4. Something that makes the hover dash dangerous is that you can't do anything out of the hover dash, including FD, until the 10th frame of the hover dash. So anytime you use hover dash, then it's like a 10 frame commitment basically before you can do anything else. So that's why doing things like this kind of pressure reset, which is common, it can be effective, but it's also actually pretty dangerous. So you have to make them want to block before you attempt something as this. Most people don't know how risky it actually is for you to hover dash in their face like this, which you can use to your advantage. But once they start checking you with like 5p or something, like I don't know, let's see, I'll try to make him do 5p after blocking. So something like this. It'll just smack you, right? But once you get them to start doing that, then you can condition them frame traps and whatnot. So
Yeah, Xander, sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
I do want to like ask about like the best frame trap string because that's something like I'm very much struggling the most with, I think. Is that possible for you to cover while we're
yeah,
talking about this?
yeah, absolutely. Her frame traps are actually really good, um, and really important because like getting people to respect your frame traps is like how you can open them up to like hover dash mix and stuff. So I'll be definitely going over that when I'm talking about like her moves and how to use them together. So there's like a lot of nice mix-ups, and by nice I mean nasty. So and setups for that. So we'll definitely get there.
Okay, cool.
So that's pretty much the basics of hover dash. Oh yeah, so you can to end hover dash, you can press a button out of it, or you can let go of 6, that's the forward input. And depending on, like, let's say you're hover dashing at someone and you do some string, your spacing can be different depending on whether or not you let go of 6 before you press the buttons, and it could be like a big difference. Like it can determine whether you're safe from being thrown or not. So like when I would fight Short Stories Testament a lot, he would get really good at throwing me out of like let's record throw. He'd really get good at this kind of thing, where like I would end up too close to him. I would end up too close to him after blocking hover dash, and he'd throw me. So if I would hover dash and have him block 2 normals, then I would be safe from being thrown, and I could like that'll open him to like getting frame trapped and stuff like that. So definitely something to keep in mind. Like if you find that you're getting thrown out of landing from your hover dash normal a lot, then either add a second normal, or instead of pressing the normal out of the hover dash, try to let go of hover dash and then press the normal like I did there. So you end up farther away from them because you start slowing down sooner. So this is all examples of me letting go of hover dash before pressing jumping kick. But if I press jumping kick as I'm still holding forward from hover dash, then you can get thrown out of it as you land. Or at least it's easier to. So that's pretty much hover dash. There's also hover dash jump, which I don't see many players use, but it's a nice neutral tool. So it can be dangerous to just like hover dash at people just straight up. But you can do something like hover dash and then let go of hover dash and then jump. That's a neutral jump, backward jump, or forward jump, which actually has a surprising amount of forward momentum, I think. And you can, since has 2 air dashes, then you can air dash after the mid-air jump. And this is even used in some combos, which like I don't practice, but you can do stuff like once you pop them up with something, then you can pursue them with that. That's hover dash forward jump. So that's pretty cool. Not just in combos, but also in neutral. Let's say if Justice is like throwing out some nukes or something. Right? So actually, I don't think I'll be able to get over the K nuke, but it gives you like another way to move around the screen, basically, other than just hover dash and stop hover dashing. That kind of thing. So.
Oh, you can go under that? That's sick.
Yeah, it's worth showing this. So Justice can throw a bunch of nukes in different arcs, and this is one that controls the ground. But and can pretty cleanly beat it. If Justice gets hit, then all her nukes disappear. But the important thing, the Justice counterplay is So this nuke will stay active until it hits something or until Justice lets go of the button. So she can, if she sees you stroking under it, then she can let go of the nuke to detonate it, and that'll blow you up pretty badly. So it's not free, but it's worth like representing every now and then.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that's hover dash jump. The next one, which is also not as common as just vanilla air dash for several reasons. One, it's like it's a little not as intuitive, and another is like it's harder to set it up safely. It's so some players call it hover dash air dash. Some players will call it 66956. I know Karushi's very familiar with this one. So it's basically doing an air dash out of your hover dash, and it looks something like this. So it has a few like interesting benefits to it. So I'll just turn off the reversal stuff, just having block everything. So if out of a normal hover dash, you might get like 1, 2, maybe like 3 kind of normals. Out of a hover dash air dash, you can get like a lot more. You can mix it up a whole lot more. During any of those, you can do any other kinds of things you can do in the air, like cancel into specials, or something I like to do sometimes is if I hit them with a higher up hover dash air dash, I'll hit them with JK, cancel into JP, which whiffs, but it cuts the momentum and you fall down and you can get a throw. That's good to sneak in sometimes. That kind of thing. Another thing is like if they learn to expect many high moves out of this hover dash air dash, you can simply go for like a 1 or 2 and then go low. Though that's risky, you can be thrown out of that, things of that nature. But the point of it is like it's good to have that extra option. Although it does take longer to start up and have attacks coming out of it than just regular hover dash, because you need to air dash out of it. It's usually harder to set up, so you usually need like a multi-hitting note or have them wake up to blocking FB note, which I'll get into more in a bit. So it's harder to set up safely, but like anything, if you can get them to respect you enough or whatever, then you can pull it off here and there and make for some threatening mix. All that kind of thing. Sorry, my game is getting a little laggy because of capturing everything, but hopefully you get the idea. Yeah, that's hover dash air dash in general. Another really useful and really rare feature of her among plus art characters is having 2 air dashes. So this gives her a lot of utility in neutral and combos. So you'll see it a lot in like combos that look like this, where she's like bouncing off of them multiple times. It can also work as like a risky pressure reset once in a while, out of your dive. It can be used to just like stall for time in the air, and you can also like FRC out of stuff in the air to like give you further cover. But yeah, like it's definitely a really important tool for her to use in conjunction with all of her other weird movement options to be able to like move around the opponent's neutral tools and everything and get into a good position. So you can also air dash twice after a super jump, and you can air dash once after a double jump. But if you air dash once in the air, you can't jump again in the air. So that's that. And sort of the last movement option of hers that I'll bring out for now, one sec, is her dives. So they look like this. She has 5 of them, 1 for each button. I'll get into these in more detail, but it is another way to get across the screen. It carries its own risks and rewards like the other movement options, but definitely worth knowing. Has its own pros and cons and pros and cons, but yeah, dives are worth knowing about too. They're usually pretty unsafe, or at least really minus on blocks, so be careful about that. I'll get more into detail about them soon. So that's her general movement options. Were there any like questions before I get into how to use her moves?
I think this is like a good starting point. But you know, feel free to move along if the others don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay, cool. So I'll go on to start talking about her moves. So let's start with her normals. So for 5P, I like it a lot actually. It's pretty useful in a number of circumstances. Though most prominently, it can be used as like a low commitment anti-air option if you're going to fall in this range, because as you can see, so the blue boxes are the hitbox and the red are the hurt box. So it's disjointed, pretty decently disjointed around her forearm and a little past it. So this can beat a lot of people kind of just like coming down on top of you or from that angle. If you stick it out, hit it right at the tip. It can also actually beat a lot of normals that extend, normals whose hurt boxes extend before the hitbox will extend. So like I was labbing this interaction earlier. So far S is this he's swinging this big center block to fill up a bunch of the screen here. But if you 5P before it, then you can stuff it like this.
It's crazy.
Yeah, Guilty Gear, man. There are some normals where it's like it's pretty hard to contest, but in surprisingly a lot of situations, you can kind of just like win if you space it nicely. Right, so 5P is really good for like, what I like the most probably about it is that it's fast and low commitment. So I can kind of just like do it randomly. So just throw it out, you know, it's one of those moves. It doesn't have very many let's just throw it out moves. They all involve some kind of commitment or another. But this is one move where you can kind of just like do it a lot of the time, and sometimes you'll like stuff. So I think the primary use of this is for neutral and anti-air and space control, but it can also be used as like combo filler. It's a good example. Well, I don't know if this will work, but so like there, I used a 5P to like do the relaunch. Whoops. Yeah, right there. I paused too late, but I did 5P, and then from there I can cancel into close S. You can also do stuff like you can like relaunch with it. Like let's say if you hit someone with what's a good example? Like any kind of setup into an S dive, and then you can 5P them, and you should be able to super jump into a follow-up. But I don't practice this much. But you can generally do this. Trust me on that. So that's 5P. Oh yeah, one other important thing to note is that it's jump cancelable. So that can be used if you want to jump install stuff for like advanced combos, but we'll get into that later. And it's also worth noting that it whiffs on most crouchers, so I don't usually use it on pressure. If they're like, because they're probably gonna be crouching. But yeah, apart from that, yeah, space control, picking up stuff in combos, and just like being annoying. Throw it out sometimes. It's nice. It's 5P. Our next is 5K, really cool normal. It has like decent range for the speed. Also jump cancelable. It's like special cancelable too. You'll see a lot of canceling it into like HCL. You can also go into 2D with it too. I use this to punish like ABBA stuff, like if I like instant block her Dawn's Eye or something and use your punish just to make sure I get the knockdown as like 5K 2D. It can go into like other Gatlings, which can further help with combos and knockdowns. It can also sometimes be used as an anti-air. So this is what the hitbox looks like for the earlier active frames of it. So it's less something that you would... So F5P is something you'd use if they're like in front of you, and this is something you'd more use if they're like falling down on top of you. So it can be used for that. But usually 6P fills a similar role, and they're both about the same commitment, more or less. So, but it's good to know that this does have that application. One last thing that's notable about this move, it's got a lot of active frames. So, so if you fought Potemkin before, you've seen how active his backdash is. So, yeah, there's only one frame of recovery on it for some reason. But a move like 5K will have an easier time catching it than like 5P or 2K or a bunch of her other moves because it is so active. So if you need a very active move for like punishing this kind of thing or meaties or something, then this is also a reasonable choice.
Potemkin backdash really is a DP.
Yeah, literally, man.
Yeah.
It goes directly into Potemkin Buster. So that's 5K. Next move, Close S. Really like key move for her. So there's like different characters have different like activation ranges for their proximity, close slash or far slash. So for example, like Robokai has like a very far, so this is his far slash, his arms spring out, and this is his close slash. He just does a slash with his sword. So wow, from all the way out here, you can get the close slash. But from here, I would get far slash, which is like the lightning bolt. I have to be like, yeah, I have to be like around here or closer. But even from here, Robokai gets his close slash, so like, Ino's close slash activation range is shorter than most characters, which will screw you up a lot, and you know, that's just, you know, it is what it is kind of thing. But that's probably the first thing I'd tell people about this normal. Next things are how to use it on block. So if you get someone to block close S, that's really good for you because you can jump cancel this into a dive. You can go low, so already you have like a high-low mix-up. You can go into 5H immediately and make it an airtight string, or you can delay it a little bit and make it a frame trap. So if I try to have Robokai do 5P out of block stun, yeah, like that. So if I wait until like the later cancel frames of close S to Gatling into 5H, then I can get a counter hit, and that's a big combo there. And so on. Yeah, out of this you have a bunch of Gatling options like 5H that I just showed. It's also jump cancelable, so something I used to do a lot was if I have them block it up close, then you can directly jump cancel and go into JD, which is like another possibility, another high possibility other than like dive. So from here, like you get high-low mix-up, you get frame traps, really good move. It's also used a lot in like relaunches, in her combos. So just a lot of utility for this move. One of the only annoying things is that the activation range for the close slash over far slash is really short. But yeah, apart from that, really good move. That leads naturally into talking about far slash, which is this thing. Really good and really weird. So a couple interesting fundamental properties of this first. So it's a projectile. It's also completely. I'm trying to get the active frames. It's also completely disjointed from Eno. Those lightning bolts there between Eno and Robokai. It's also active for like I think Dustloop says something like 11 frames, but even hitting it on the first active frame gives you a +5, which is really good for Eno. So if I have him mash out here, I should be able to get a 2H, I think. I'm not sure about if. I'll let me do slash instead. So yeah, if you get them to block this, unless they poke out with something really fast, which they're less likely to do if you're a little farther away, then you'll probably get a really nice, juicy 2H counter hit, which can combo into Heavy Stroke the Big Tree, which can give you like a full combo, etc. So, yeah, Far Slash is really good, and since it's really active too, you can time it to be like really meaty and make it even more plus, up to +16 if you hit with like the last active frame. But apart from that, I think the most important thing to keep in mind for this move is, like, let's say in your situation where you knock them down, but you don't have the time or the spacing to throw like a note on them, that's at least like 2 hits, then I think you should do Far Slash Oki instead. Because you can more easily space and time it to be meaty and like safe from a lot of stuff. And you'll still be able to play your mix-up game after. So in particular, like the mix-up game I'm talking about is if they block this move, you can go for a hover dash mix that they're gonna have to block. But once they start 5P'ing you or whatever out of your hover dash, then you can hit them with like 5H or 2H in this situation instead, and that counter hit will give you a full combo, which will make them scared to press buttons, which will let you do a hover dash mix next time you're in this situation. So like it keeps repeating like that. So that's like the sort of mini game around blocking this move. Some other useful properties about it: using it randomly in neutral can be good. The only bad thing about using it in neutral is that it's a slow to start up move, so it takes a while for it to be active, and it gets beaten out a lot of the time because of that. And there's also a lot of recovery on it too, so if someone happens to be jumping at you at the same time, then you'll get smacked. But if you hit someone with it, even on a normal hit, then they get launched into a follow-up of your choice. So the easiest one that's meterless and works anywhere, with pretty good reward, all things considered, is to, let's see, jump up and hit them with jumping heavy. And then you want to cancel that into H note. So the jumping heavy will make them take a hard knockdown. And then canceling late into the H note will have them wake up into it. And then you can get Oki off of that. So that's meterless, not hard. This works on almost all characters. So it's pretty universal in that sense too. If you cancel into the heavy note too soon, then it might whiff. It might fly past them. So you have to delay the cancel of your heavy note a little bit into the JH cancel window to get this meaty. If you want full corner carry, and if you have 25 meter, you can immediately go into TK Force Break Dive, which is a core circle forward D. You can immediately do that, and then from there you can go into your jumping heavy into K dive from there to get a hard knockdown in the corner. You can start your OK here. You can also, I didn't practice this at all, I never do this, but you can also get like a full meterless combo. It's like something involving a forward jump out of the hover dash after the far slash hits, and then jumping slash. But I don't know it off the top of my head, and it can give like pretty good corner carry without meter, but I wouldn't dump meter to do damage after hitting with far slash, because the last notable thing about this move is that the damage proration is really bad. So like any hits you do after far slash hitting will be like very heavily scaled. So I would only spend meter to kill, or to carry them to the corner from that point. Oh, a couple of other, no, sorry, I lied. There's a lot of other interesting things about this move. So, this is a projectile, but let me turn off the replay thing. So this is a projectile, but it will build guard meter, which is really uncommon for projectiles. So if I turn off guard bar, reset. So you'll run into this situation where people don't know how to deal with this move. And then suddenly, like, if you just like spam this move, then their guard bar will fill up to like scary levels. And if they basically try to like poke out and you're too far away, then they'll get hit by one of them, they'll get popped up and you can do whatever. And the other interesting thing about this move, in terms of defending against it, is, where is it? So if you try to FD this move, you don't get pushed back because it's a projectile. So if they're not familiar with this move, then they could like burn FD dealing with it, expecting you to be pushed back, but it never happens. That kind of thing. The answer is it's only +5, and it's like something like 10 to 15 frames startup, so you can just jump out of it, or you can counter poke with something long enough, but you have to time the hit. You have to time your Abare well, and the timing is not super intuitive because it's a weird looking move. But that is one thing that catches a lot of people.
Is it possible for them to jump out?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can jump out. Let's see. Let's see. I can set this up this way. So you can jump out. But if you
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, if you were to try to just like, you have to pick the right thing to challenge with, basically. So that's something that can catch some people. And if you hit someone with it in the corner, then you can get a free mirrorless combo off of that too. To come into a knockdown, and you can loop your Oki and whatever. So that's far S. 5H is this move. It looks really funny. It looks like a Looney Tunes kind of thing. Something not obvious about it. So this is what it looks like, the hitboxes and hurtboxes. So it's quite disjointed actually. And it actually lifts her up above the ground a bit, but that in practice doesn't really help very often. What's useful about it though is that it's really disjointed, and it can like stuff a lot of things. So like this kind of thing will happen. And if you're trying to bait it like a counterattack with it, then you can buffer stroke heavy stroke the big tree into it, and like do your combo and convert and whatever off of that. Other useful properties about it. So this is also jump cancelable. So if you have them block your string of offense, you can attempt to reset of some kind of that. Though that's usually not the best option for rebuying into pressure, but it is an option that's worth knowing. Most often you'll see Enos cancel into S or H stroke out of it, which is also useful. Is there anything else about this move? Yeah, those are the main qualities. Both of her heavy normals, 5H and 2H, will combo into heavy stroke the big tree on counter hit, so that's really good. So speaking of 2H, Cruci, to get back to your point about frame traps, so this move is really good for frame traps. This is, let me see how plus it is. This move is +6 on block, actually. So, I think, yeah, 2H into 2H is like not a meme, it's like actually a thing. It's actually useful.
Sounds like SF5.
Yeah! Standing medium punch and standing medium punch? Oh man. Where is it? Yeah, so this will work. This will catch a lot of people unfamiliar. 2H and 2H is pretty good. An even tighter frame trap is to do like 5k, which you can do whatever after. Yeah, no, it's pretty good. I guess the only thing is, if you're doing like a hover dash block string into it, and like you're way out here, it's got shorter range than 5H, so you'd have to be closer to get them to block it, and a little closer still to be able to make full use of the plus frames. But definitely a good move. Also, it's faster than 5H, but it will still combo into... the startup is faster than 5H's, but it will still combo into heavy stroke the big tree. So it's really good for frame traps. Like that. So probably the most common frame traps are like have them block far slash, and then so it's manually timed, but the timing is usually pretty lenient. Far slash into 2H. Or like 2H into 2H. I missed it. You can also do 2P into 2H. You don't have to, that's like automatically timed, just gatlinging that normally will work. And 2P into 5H will also work, there's a bigger gap there. Those are the most common ones I see. Also worth noting now, while I'm talking about frame traps, is like if you can frame trap them with a counter hit K dive, then you can usually get a big reward off of that too. Be close. Yeah, that close S stuff. All that kind of thing. So those are probably her most common frame trap setups.
Quick question. Are there any frame traps from her K moves? Because I feel like I see a lot of those moves being used during the hover dash mix-up. So like, for example, hover dash JS into 2K. Are there any frame traps from that situation?
After having them block like a grounded K move?
Yeah. So, like I feel like the K move situations come up pretty often. So I was wondering if there are any useful frame traps to use, because I
Yeah.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one that I use sometimes is like, because 5k hits from farther out, you can catch them with this counter hit far slash, which gives you a lot of time to kind of do whatever combo you want after that. And if they block, then if they block from here, then you're plus, and you're still in range to threaten with like either counter hit 2H or 5H or a hover dash again. So let's say if I have them block a few keys, so like you can set the range up like that somehow. I think you can also go directly into a 5H frame trap if they're really mashy. I think those are the main ways. Offer 2K though, I haven't really explored frame traps offer 2K. I guess maybe to do 2D that can be auto timed if they're mashing. But that's usually not too much reward because if you're going to go directly into that off of 2K, you can maybe get, depending on the character, you can maybe get an HCL after that. Or if you're jump installed from hover dashing from before, then you can do like HCL 6 RC 6 stuff. But I don't think there's anything too wild off of her 2K. I just tried a strive thing. No, 2K 6H doesn't work in this game. But yeah, I think I could go for things off of 5K because of the long range and the shorter hit stop and being able to gatling into things. I think that's probably the main key normal I'd frame trap with.
Okay, makes sense. So like 2K is more so reserved for the low mix-up option.
Yeah, it's like your fastest low. So I think its main use is like checking like low movement if people are gonna try to run up, throw you, or for like the low option out of your hover dash mix up. I think those are the main applications for it.
For sure.
Okay, so then what else? So that is. Let me go back to my little notepad thing. So that is 5H and 2H. Oh yeah, 5D. Everyone loves this move. This move is pretty funny for various reasons. So it's actually got quite a big and quite an active forward-moving hitbox. So this this big cyan rectangle is emitting from your amp. It's pretty slow, this move. Like all, I think yeah, like all dust in this game, it is overhead. Though there's not, you don't have the telltale orange glow like you have in Exart and Strive. If you don't know the animation, then you gotta hold that basically. So yeah.
Quickly, I think this was in the forum, and I was totally confused. What's the 5 dust combo that's your go-to for,
Oh,
because I had no idea.
so in mid screen, I've never learned like character specific ones, but for mid screen, I'll just do like this kind of thing. Oh, I guess it doesn't work on Eno. Oh, I don't think I ever really explored on Eno actually, but it's usually of this kind of form. Oh, I guess it doesn't work on Eno. I'm gonna have to allow that later. Let me pick someone more with a more normal hurt box. I guess I delayed too much. Oh yeah, it depends how close you are when the 5D hits. So if you're close enough, usually something like this will work, which is just H, jump cancel, SH, and then into K dive. So I like that because it's simple, it's easy. There's a built-in burst throw there, if you want to go for that kind of thing. A built-in burst throw OS. It's pretty funny. I'll try to demonstrate it. So the idea is like, so when you do, you can do JH, jump cancel JH K dive. That's like the easiest way to do it. So you press your first JH normally, and then you jump cancel it, and then for your second JH you input like 4H or 6H, and if they burst then you'll throw it, and if they don't burst then JH comes out, and then you can combo into K dive from there. So like uh, that kind of thing. And then if they don't burst, then you can just fall into this combo. So that's what I do in mid-screen. I like it because it's like mostly universal from what we just saw. And you get corner carry, meterless. So, but in the in the corner, I'll do like, hold on, it's like muscle memory. So I'll just do like a JH starter into like her typical dive loop ender, which is like a standard thing for like her corner combo ender stuff. So that's like JH jump cancel. Yeah, JH jump cancel, SH dive, H dive, SH K dive is what I'll usually do. If I really want to get the knockdown and make sure I don't drop it, I'll just like cut the loop short. I'll just do H jump cancel, SH K dive or something.
Okay.
That's generally what I do. There's like more curse stuff you can do, like stuff like there's like there's a way to hit 5 of them or something. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I don't know, something like that. There's some weird stuff you can do, but I'll just do dive loops basically. I wanted to mention, sorry, does that help with your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's one thing checked out for sure.
Okay, nice. I want to mention that apart from this being like an overhead, which you can use for mix, it can actually control space decently well. So if you think they're gonna run in at you, like say, if you're like near the ground and they think you'll throw like a note at them, they'll use that chance to get in on you, and you can kind of just like throw it out, and you'd be surprised how well it can catch some people. You can use this a lot against like souls, for example, or characters that like to rush in a lot, Jam, Soul, that kind of thing. Rush in on the ground, I should say. You can Gatling into it from a lot of normals, so it can work as just like a straight up, high-low mix kind of thing. One setup I like to use sometimes is like, if I have him block here, have them block FP note, and then you can hit them with that. So yeah, have them wake up an FP note, and then immediately have them block it. The part that's funny is you're like partially obscured by the notes exploding, so it makes the animation harder to distinguish. Another way you can set up like a tricky one is that. So if I have him not block, so if they're on the ground, you can OTG them with 2K and then late cancel Gatling into 5D, and then if they tech backwards, and then they'll get hit by it like as soon as they wake up. I did it too late, so yeah, that kind of thing, which is also funny. Those are some more common 5D setups, but since you can Gatling into it from stuff, you can be as creative with it as you want. So that's 5D. 2P, I'll go into the crouching normals now. I'll also pick up the pace a little bit. I don't want you to have to hold you guys here forever, but so 2P is pretty good for like tick throws. I think it's plus like 1 or 2 or something. It's plus a very small amount, and it lets you walk up and throw them. It's common after like having them block a hover dash normal or no hover dash normals. I did with 2K there, but same kind of idea. One more important thing I forgot to mention about 5P that I remember now. So let me get this guy to block. So if I happen to catch someone in the air with a note, I like to like one way you can harass them is have them land into you mashing 5P because it gatlings into itself. So it'll force them to FD and at least waste some meter. If you have the time to cross underneath them, then you can make them have to block it the other way instead. And they'll have to FD 5P since it's a grounded normal too, so one more useful thing for 5P. Yeah, so back to like 2P, so it's basically your main like tick throw move. You can gatling into a bunch of stuff from it, and you have those like H normal gatlings that we talked about. 2K is, like I said, it's like your fastest low, so it's your main way to empty hover dash low someone quickly. But it's rather prorated, so you usually don't get big damage off of it compared to 2S, but 2S is slower. So 2S is like high damage, like high reward, high risk, high reward, and 2K is like lower risk, lower reward. When you're going for your, when you're choosing between 2K or 2S when you do an empty hover dash. That's basically how that works. 2S is awesome. I love this move. So like a lot of other characters, the way they would use a far slash. Oh my god, Testament far slash. How a lot of characters would use their far slash to kind of just control the space in front of them with like a non-committal poke, a checks movement kind of thing. That function is assigned to Ino's 2 slash. And it's low, which is really nice. It's not low in Strive, which made me very sad when I found that out.
Not low in Exarch either.
Oh my gosh, man. What did they do to her, man? But yeah, that's 2S. It's mainly for checking movement. At like almost tip range, you can come in with 2S. So if you're like, around here, you suspect they might try to jump out or something, you can catch them with this. It's not jump cancelable, which is unfortunate. But you can gatling into 5H, which is. So like a high risk, high reward thing you can do. Well, if you don't do like HCL 6 for C6 stuff, you can at least get that. If you go for 2K starter, you can go into some like dive loops. Oh, I dropped it. Something like that. If you do HCL 6 for C6 stuff, let's see if we can do it. I cut it short, but that's like a 217 damage thing for 25 meter, as opposed to like an easier one would be with no loops or anything, just gatlings, would be like 2K into like HCL for like 72 damage or something. So, yeah, so your like high reward, high risk option is definitely off of like 2S if you're gonna go low, but it can still be useful to go for like 2K stuff just to be sure you can get the low and to have them and to just kind of add to their stack. So yeah, that's like the application of 2K and 2S. 2D is like your classic knockdown. Nothing really special about it. It's not jump cancelable like some characters are for some reason in this game. Like I like Baiken and Kyle, among I think Jam too. And there's a bunch of others, but whatever.
Dizzy.
Dizzy? Oh my! I didn't know that. Oh my gosh, this game
Crazy.
This game is so sick. But but yeah, 2D. Her 2D is nothing special. It just knocks down. It's got shorter reach than 2S, which is notable. So like, yeah, if you're trying to like really touch someone with the tip of your range, you want to do 2S. Oh, another thing worth noting about 2S, if you're gonna try and like zone people out with it like this, then it could be worth buffering HCL into it. If you're close enough and the opponent is not very short, then they'll probably get clipped by this. They'll get clipped by it in most situations where 2S does not hit at tip range, like a little closer than tip range, or if it doesn't hit an extended hurt box. So that's worth doing. Anytime you do 2S, like it's worth buffering HCL into it. The way I do it, I don't do 2S and then let go and then do the whole HCL motion. I'll do 6, 3, 2, S, 1, 4, 6K, like that input on the screen. So in real time, something like that. So it's just easier for me. That you do that with a lot of her moves when you cancel them into Chemical Love. Yeah, something to keep in mind. Okay, 6P is like most other plus R characters are sort of dedicated 6P. Pretty good hurt box, just below like her knees. A couple of gotchas about it. Let's see. This is probably a good example. So it will actually move her forward a little bit. So if I go to full screen and I 6P, she moves forward a bit, right? You can see the camera move. If I just mash it, then I'll get closer and closer and closer to Testament. So on its own, it seems kind of innocuous, but in a situation like this, you can get crossed up if you do it when you're in the corner. So situations that happen to me are like, I'll 6P when I'm in or near the corner. Since it moves me a bit forward, then they'll cross me up, and I'll forget to like realize it basically, and then I'll cross myself up basically, which is not fun. Also, like, since it just moves you forward a bit, it's easy to like misjudge the right spacing for it. So definitely things to keep in mind. It's higher commitment than 5P, but higher reward too, because if you do manage to land it, then you can combo into 6S. I mean, not 6S, close S. And then you can do whatever from there. You can get like corner carry, or you can get some damage, but usually not like super high damage from that kind of starter. But yeah, 6P is pretty cool. Only use it when you're sure they're gonna land on you, otherwise you'll probably end up being sad. 6H is a pretty funny move. So like a common like OS and plus R, and I think XR too. I don't know, I've never really played it, but say if you're right up in someone's face, you can input 6 S plus H, and if they're in a throwable state, then you'll throw them. But if they're not, like say if they're fuzzy jumping out, or if you mistimed it, if you mistimed your throw too early as they wake up, and they're still throw protected, then you get close S instead. Then you get close S instead of the throw. But 6H is kind of an auto OS for that, so it'll kind of just like come out if you miss your throw. It's not as fast or great to OS with as close S, so I still recommend OSing with 6 S plus H in that situation. But that's one funny application of this. Another funny application of this is that it's like very disjointed. So it's really good for like sniping anti-airs, but like you have to, and I really have to use the word snipe here because you have to be very precise with this. It's slow to start up, it's high recovery and everything, but the reward is pretty high if you can counter hit with it. And so on and so forth. But if you miss, like, you'll feel bad and you'll be in recovery for a long time. One last funny thing about it, I don't really know, this is like, there's not much use for this, but you can late Gatling out of it into 5K for some reason. So it can have like really niche combo applications. Right, but you don't really see that very often. That's like wizard level stuff. Like, been playing for like 5 years or something. that's like you don't need to worry about that. But it's a funny fact to share next time you're hanging out with your friends. Oh yeah, her jumping normals. JP is really cool. It recovers fast. Decently disjointed, so it can kind of stuff a lot of things. It's the closest thing Ino has to a safe stop sign of a move. She has bigger stop signs, which are higher commitment, but this is something you can kind of just throw out sometimes. You can it galling into itself on hit, and if even one of them hits, you can go into FB die, which can give you like full corner carry. So pretty good. It works as a wall basically, and it can be like a sort of filler move you do. Something you'll see a lot of like souls do in this and in other Guilty Gears is they'll whiff JP a few times, then do whatever it is they're gonna do on Oki. So Ino can do a similar kind of thing where she can like whiff JP just to have something else for the opponent to register. And then she can go into like an air dash, or she can jump and then go into an air dash. JP, air dash, whatever. So it's just like, it's something you can kind of like throw out, relatively low risk and neutral, and also just gives something for the opponent to register. And also it will let you intercept stuff as a low commitment stop sign. So pretty good air normal. Also, it's the reason why when I'm teching in the air, I will mash P. I'll mash P instead of K. Here, let me try to demonstrate. Because if it comes out, then I can still do stuff. So it's not good. Well, compared to teching out with K and like K coming out, because K is out and active for a long time, so if you tech out, if you're teching in the air and you have JK come out, then you'll be stuck in that the whole way down, and it feels bad. But if it's P, at least and you're high enough, then you can do stuff after it. Speaking of JK, this is a pretty... I should also talk about JP in the context of hover dash. So we don't really use it much to like start with in a hover dash because it's like kind of high hitting. We'll usually start with either JS or JK or JS. Those are like lower hitting. But we do throw in JP. It's faster to go between JK and JP than like other Gatlings, so it has some uses there to like change your rhythm and change what you're Gatling into and out of. Yeah, that's JP pretty much. JK, like I said, it's like your fastest attack that can come out of hover dash that will hit crouchers. So if you want to hit someone high out of a hover dash ASAP, then JK is your tool. From there, you can, if you hit them with a hover dash JK, then you can call into pretty much any slash or punch normal from there, including 6P, and do whatever you want. Pretty good for that. It also lets you Gatling into JD for an additional high. You can fake it further by hover dashing in front of them and then dropping down low enough for them to see you drop down. But then you press JD right before you hit the ground to float back up and hit them with a high. So let's say if they're used to this, you can hit them with like that kind of thing. So yeah, JD is really cool. JK can also cross up, worth knowing. I personally don't use that property of it very much. It can be useful in some situations, but I pretty much only use it in hover dashing or in combos in the air, Because if you whiff it in the air and neutral, then you're stuck there for a long time. It's also a little disjointed. That's JK. JS. It's mostly like a combo filler kind of normal. It's jump cancelable, which is cool. Mostly a combo filler kind of normal. I don't use it much in neutral. Because you have, if you want to control the space, then you have better tools in Locomotive JP or higher reward JH. So it's mostly a combo move, JS. JS is mostly a combo move. But hitbox and hurtboxes aren't. Well, they're pretty bad, actually. So the hitbox is in the hurtbox, so. JH is a really funny normal. It's got a huge, like, disjoint. So it's really great to approach with if you space it well. So I'll show like that, it's a little easier to see. So it's great to approach with. It also hit a little further above Eno too. I'll try to get the freeze frame. Yeah, like that. So even hit a little bit above her in the later active frames. Still disjointed, pretty cool. The only bad thing about it is it takes a very long time. So if you whiff this in the air, what happens to me a lot is I'll try to do TK note, but I'll drop it and I'll get jumping heavy instead, and that feels really bad. So this move is counter hit state for like the whole time, including the recovery. So if you whiff this as you're flying at them and they tag you, on the way down it's gonna hurt. So this move is like great when used well by like approaching with using like the very tip covering you like that. It can be very annoying and very good to be used that way. But yeah, like if you miss with it, it's bad. It's almost like a pseudo DP in that sense of like risk and reward. But yeah, so I would use it in neutral. It's for like keep out, for like approaching, but you have to be precise with it, right? Don't whiff it. And also it's an essential combo tool as well. Last jumping normal, jump D. If you didn't know, I believe this applies to all jumping D but in this game, but I'm not totally sure. This move will give you extra landing recovery if you use it in the air, whether it hits or not. So if I do like jumping P, and then I'm gonna do jumping P and hold up, you'll see how soon I can jump. And then I'll do the same with jumping D, and you'll see that I have a noticeable lag. So I can jump pretty much after like planting my feet again here. But if I use JD, I'm on the ground for noticeably longer. And that also means I can't like I can't do any action for longer if I use JD in the air. This is used. This can sometimes actually be used in neutral. A funny option you can do is like round start JD, which can catch some things like some normals or some IADs. It's actually got a pretty good disjoint. It's like a wall, but yeah, it's pretty bad to whiff. So it can be used like that. If you happen to hit with it, you can jump cancel into like a full combo and whatever. I think it's most commonly used in like cover dash mix-up. Because it pops you up into the air a bit, you can make it so you can make it appear to the opponent like you're falling down out of your hover dash, which you are here. So they'll expect to switch to a low, set them to guard. Like this. Oh, I forgot. Yeah. So, and as you're going low, you insert the JD there, and that alone will catch a lot of people. So some conversions off of that. So if you hit them with JD, you can do like a full meterless combo like this. Though that can be safe because if they happen to block the JD, for that particular combo at least, like you have to do JH right after jump canceling JD. And as we discussed, if you whiff that, then it's gonna feel bad. So if they block JD, then doing jump cancel JH right after is pretty bad. But a lower commitment option, but costs meter, is to do FP dive after that, and then you can still get your full combo from there. I shorten it, but you can get more off that. It's pretty much JD. Oh yeah, one more notable thing about JD. So like, some characters will let you do like a JD FDC. So I don't remember the specifics of it, but basically if you're in the air and you plink, how do I say this? So you plink jumping dust to FD basically. If you plink, if you do it wrong, you get burst. If you do the button presses too soon together, then you get burst. But if you get the plank, then you get this like mini hop. It's kind of like a KOF hop, if I can call it that. So you get this like this thing. So that can add another layer to your mix. I would only bother adding it if just your normal hover dash mix without using that is already potent enough, I think. I would only bother including this layer if like they've shown they can pretty much block everything. So I don't practice it, but yeah, you can just do all kinds of weird like momentum stuff with it. Unfortunately, if you do an empty hop with it, since you do use JD, it does apply the extra landing recovery, so you still are delayed to act after you land. So it's not the same speed as like a KOF empty hop into a low, but if it's unexpected enough, you could catch someone with it, or at least give them one more thing to think about, which will make them susceptible to other things. Yeah, so that's JD basically. Now I'll talk about her specials. I just dumped a lot of information though. Does anyone have any questions or like anything they want to add, or yeah, questions or feedback? Am I going too fast or too slow, too much or too little information? Just let me know.
Yeah, I think you've covered a lot so far, but I did have like some more questions, but it might also be so,
Sorry, you're like dropping out for me. Can you see if your volume is like high?
yeah, sorry, I was pretty far. Like I know what you've covered like is quite a lot so far, and I'm not sure if you want to touch on this later, but I was curious in like are there certain safe jump setups that you favor, if at all? Because like oftentimes there like of course there are opportunities for them to DP on wake up, even through the no Okizeme, but also sometimes they DP through, I don't know, like after you do a hover dash and then you land, they DP right away. Like even though it's not like punishable the landing, like sometimes that's something they can do. And I wonder if there's something that you have that like baits it without having to hard bait it, like without having it at the front of your mind to bait it.
Yeah. Let's take a look at that real quick before I go into special moves. So like, what I will do, the general thing to do, is to hit them with like a spaced meaty /. So this will cover against a lot of reversals. If they block it, then you're still pretty plus to apply like the hover dash, whatever mix up we were talking about earlier. If they get hit, then you get your launcher into whatever, or if they invuln through it, then you can get your full punish. That is like a universal, easy to execute thing, and because // is so active, it can cover for a lot of different wake up timings. So if I'm not sure what I'm doing, then I'll just do that, which means I'll do that a lot. And I honestly, because the wake up timings differ so much, and because Ino's like Oki options remain, Oki options like Note and Far S are so active, I don't have any like precise safe jump setups that I regularly use. I'll basically, what I'll do is, let's say if I knock them down, and this is like the situation, right? Or I'll delay it a little bit actually. Okay, like this kind of situation, right? So
Yeah.
If I want to try to, so if you, there is a way to, the most common safe jump is to do a well-timed falling JK out of this. But the timing is like rather specific per like character and reversal. But as far as real safe jumps, that's pretty much like the only one that I've had to employ. So from here it's a well-timed JK. So let's see if I can do it. That was too late. That might have hit, but let's see. So the trick to making this work is like you don't do the JK as you're holding forward in the hover dash. You need to let go of hover dash and press JK. Have JK land at like the last moment before your hover dash, and then from there, you know, you're holding back, and you can input whatever gatlings you would do on block. But if they DP, then like they won't come out. Let me turn it back on. But basically, like this is the main thing. Hover dash into falling JK. That's the thing. So if you land JK, the measuring stick to tell if your JK was safe enough to a soul DP is if you can link 6p after it, then it was deep enough to be safe. So that was too high. That was also a little too high. Oh.
Does it differ based on whether they're crouching?
Yeah, there's one more extra frame of hit stun if they're crouching. As far as like timing, I'm not sure if there's a difference in timing, but this link will be easier if they're crouching. Yeah, something like that. So that's like the main safe jump, hover dash JK. To go along with the far slash and spaced note, those are like your safe OK, your main safe OK options without getting too weird.
Okay, yeah, no, that's definitely suffices for what I was curious about. So yeah, thanks.
For sure. Okay, I'll talk a bit about her specials and like the weird quirks about them. So iconically, she has note. So it's a big projectile. She has a note launched with the punch button and a note launched with the heavy button. So the punch button starts slow and speeds up. The heavy button starts fast and slows down. I recommend mixing them up if you're throwing them in neutral, so that the opponent has to deal with like two different kinds of notes. So like if they're not paying close attention, they'll mess up the timing of how to dodge it, which will make it easier for you to block them, make it easier for you to connect with them. And if it connects with them on block or on hit, you can move in and do your mix and whatever. Something not obvious about it, so steering the note, right? You can steer the note by holding up or down while the note is active. But so this is me throwing the note and holding up immediately and just not letting go of up. But if you actually tap up or down, then you can steer the note faster. So this is me launching the note and mashing up. Right, works down too. That's me holding down. And now me mashing down. So this can work to like break people's ankles, this kind of thing. They see it go down at first, but then you mash up So like you hold down to steer it slowly down, and then you mash up to counter their attempt to jump over it. Basically, works for both punch and heavy notes. The longer the note is active before it hits them, the more hits it will be. It's between 1 and 5 hits, and yeah, if it's more hits, then they'll be hit stun, block stun for longer, or hit stun if it hits them, which is better for your mix. So basically, if you knock someone down, oh, let me turn that off. So if you knock someone down, oh whoops, I wanted to turn this off. If you knock someone down, and your note is like 3 hits, if you have the time and the spacing to throw a 3-hit note, then generally between throwing the note and hover dashing at them, that's airtight. But if you only have the time to do like a 2-hit note, like that, then there can be a gap between the note, between them blocking the note and your hover dash normal coming out. Or, yeah, what I just said. And one-hit notes are just like not really useful as Oki. If I had to choose between a one-hit note and far slash, I would always choose far slash for Oki. So this can happen if you have like a dive loop ending here. Not worth going for the one-hit note Oki because they're just down in blocks them for long enough. It's better to back up a bit and do far slash or something. Go for these 2 notes if you're going to go for note Oki, but know that there is a DPable gap between the notes and your hover dash normal. 3 notes and more will be hover type between throwing the note and doing a hover dash normal. You may also have noticed that I tiger knee my notes, or I TK them. And the reason for that is the recovery is shorter if you TK them rather than if you throw them on the ground. So throwing them on the ground, I'm just holding up after I do it, versus TKing them. Oh, whoops, dropped it. So you can move a little sooner. The other thing is, if you want an FRC note on the ground, there's only like a 2-frame window to do it. I don't use this ever, but you can do it. But if you do the note in the air, that window becomes 6 frames big. It basically counts as a separate move, and you have a 6-frame FRC window. So it's a really nice move to practice your 6 FRC 6 with, if you're going to get into that. One last thing, which is not so obvious, is so if the note, so the instant the note collides with something and explodes, you can throw another note the very next like frame. You don't have to wait for the explosion to stop to throw another note, is what I'm saying. So you can do this kind of thing. Alright, so you know how you see how like the next note comes out right after the first note makes contact. It's pretty much like the basic thing about notes. You want to use it for space control, you can use it for Oki, and if that fails, there is always force break note, which lets you launch 2 at once. A rather stupid move, I have to admit. It's kind of like an auto-winning neutral kind of thing. So you can just launch it, and it's like it's when you first launch it, it's 2 notes perfectly overlapping each other. So if you want to do like really strong Oki right in someone's face, you can just do FB note in their face, and you can do whatever. It'll make them block for a long time. If you want to control the neutral, you launch this, and you can pressing either up or down will spread the notes apart, and then pressing in the opposite direction will bring them closer together. So sometimes people will see them spreading apart, and try to IAD through them, but you can close the gap again, which is pretty funny. And the same thing applies where you can hold up or down to steer it slower, or mash it to steer it faster. You can also do it in the air, and as far as I know, the properties are like exactly the same. You can also still FRC it, which is like a very aggressive approach if you want to go for that. But it's not used in combos or anything like that. Notes aren't really used in combos; they're used in neutral or Oki. Something a really common way to use them is like, let's say you knock someone down and you're a little late to do your Oki, or you're out of position or whatever. Then you can kind of throw your FE note, and you can cover them blocking on the ground or them trying to jump out while you go in and try to clean up. That's basically FB note. Dive. So she has 5 different kinds of dives. One for each attack button. They have different angles. So punch dive is the most steep, followed by K dive, and S dive. Then H dive is, funnily enough, just Psycho Crusher from M. Bison. FB dive goes up at an angle and has a lot of weird stuff, which I'll get into on its own, but the regular dives on their own have their own interesting properties. So punch dive on hit or block will bounce you back, and you can do certain actions after that. So you can air dash back in. You can do another dive. I don't think you can back. I've never tried backdashing out of this, I think, but I don't know if you can.
I'm pretty sure you can. I was trying that earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, so SP dive, it's used a lot in combos. You can also use it in pressure, but pretty risky. If they're catching on to you, then they can swatch you out of the air. All the dives in general that are not the force break dive have not good hitboxes and hurtboxes, so you can get swatted out of them rather easily. And they're negative on block, depending on, and they're usually outright punishable, at least throw punishable if you're close enough and hit them too shallow. K dive will cause a hard knockdown on normal hit, and on counter hit, it will do a ground slide. So ground slide lets you follow up after. Let me set it to first. Something like that is an easy follow-up afterwards. So you need 5H to pick them up, and then do jump H and cancel into a note. Something like that. If you cancel into the note later, you'll get it to hit meaty. So it's good as a frame trap tool. Also, it's less negative than the S dive on block, so if you have to come down with the dive, then it's probably the one I'd recommend. Then there's S dive. S dive will float them in the air on hit, so that lets you do like a follow-up combo. And yeah, depending on the character and the spacing, you can get different stuff, or it's easier or it's harder. Usually, if they're lighter, they'll pop up higher, and if they're wider, it'll be easier to hit them with a close S after. Yeah, and since all these dives have to be blocked high, they all function as like high mix-ups as well. S dive you'll also see a lot in combos. P dive you'll see a lot in combos. And K dives you'll pretty much always see as a combo ender because it causes the hard knockdown. H dive is the Psycho Crusher. It has a few like nice niche options in certain matchups, like at the Axel matchup. But basically, it's pretty risky. It's got an FRC point at the end. But I would only use it to get in once in a while. Because if it's blocked, or if they go over it, or whatever, then you're sitting duck for a long time. If you get someone to block it, you can RC and maybe try a cheeky mix-up from there, but that's, dangerous. But we don't use this that often most of the time. Now, it can also be used for like certain combos. Let's see. Let's space this just right. I'm not even sure if it works on Soul, but well, there's a way to hit them with TK dive after popping them up and then continuing the combo. I'm not sure if it works on Soul the way I was doing it, but yeah. It's usually, I don't think those roots are nice to know, but I don't know how much better they are on average. I don't know how situational they are. I think so that's the thing. Okay, so the last interesting thing about the dive family of moves is the force break dive. So this move is like also super good. So the hitbox is really good, and on top of that, the start of it has strike invulnerability, so it actually works well as an anti-air. It has a lot of weird things about it. So first off, like all the other dives, you can hold the button to delay when it comes out, as you can with FB dive. But the unique thing about FB dive among the other dives is you can press a non-dust button while holding the dust button that you use to activate the move to just drop to the ground. So you can do like stuff like that. Yeah, so you can that's like a whole other like layer of mix and stuff you can do if you so wish. At any point during the ascending part of the dive, you can also press like any attack button and it will cancel the dive effectively and then like bring you straight, have you fall straight down. But the other really interesting thing about this dive cancel is it will refresh your air actions. So if I air dash twice, dive, I can air dash twice again. So if you really want to spend a lot of time in the air, whether it's to reposition or to stall or whatever, you can do it this way. Super jump, air dash, dive, air dash, dive, something like that. That's a thing. In pressure, another way you can use it is so when you are holding the dive, you can air dash out of it by inputting. So you're holding down the dust button, you input 6, then you press a non-dust button to cancel the dive, and then you press 6 again to instantly air dash out of it. So that's another thing you can use. You can suspend yourself in the air for a bit and then air dash out of it. So applied in pressure, it'll look like that was too low. Something like that. Something of that nature. So it's another way you can augment your pressure. And because it's so good of a hitbox with something like that, you can often like just contest things. And if you hit with this move, that means you can usually get, if not full corner carry, a whole lot of corner carry. So if I even start over here, I don't know, let's see. So I didn't hit them with a dive, but if I had timed it differently, or if the character's gravity or hurt box was different, I might have hit that. Soul has a notoriously thin air hurt box, so it's like whatever. But yeah, you can go like coast to coast with it. Something that will happen a lot is like, say if you're doing your pressure and you're pushed out all the way here from them blocking correctly, you can just like randomly throw out FB dive and you can catch air escapes like that because they'll think that the space in the upper right here can't be checked that quickly, but so it's good to throw out there too sometimes. There's a lot of weird utility. Sorry about the noise. There's a lot of weird extra utility for this move, but those are like some of the basic things about it. Last special moves are... Oh, sorry, there's Chemical Love and Stroke the Big Tree. So Stroke the Big Tree, there's two variations, the S1 and the H1. The S1, it will stagger on hit, and depending on how good they are at mashing out a stagger, if they're not good at mashing out a stagger, or if they don't try, then you can just knock them down with the HCL after that. So let me turn their stagger thing down to level 1. Slip recovery. So yeah, so if you're close enough, because HCL will it takes time to travel. If you're close enough and they don't stagger out don't mash out a stagger fast enough, then you can knock them down with HCL. If they've shown that they can do that, then you can usually go for something a little faster, like I guess I'm not sure if 5D will work there, but 2D will be faster to knock them down. Or if you're close enough, you can try 5K HCL, which is faster than both of those, which you have to be pretty close for that to combo. And if they've shown they can even stagger out of that, then after you hit them with the stagger, you can simply treat it like you're a situation where you're really plus, as if they have just blocked far slash. So from here, you can like attempt a hover dash mix up, or you can press like a heavy slash button, and if they were trying to check you or they were trying to mash buttons during stagger, then they'll get hit by it. By the way, if you didn't know, if you get hit by this kind of stagger, pressing buttons apparently does not help you recover faster. It's only pressing left and right. Sorry about the noise. So these guys, man. But yeah, only pressing left and right will help you shake out this kind of stagger faster. But if you're like dizzied, like with the stars going over your head or whatever, then I think I forgot exactly what it was, but I know buttons will help if you're dizzy. But for this kind of stagger, it's just pushing left and right that will help you. So my point in bringing that up is like no point in pushing buttons in this situation and opening yourself to getting counter hit, because it won't help you recover faster. But if they don't know that and they open themselves up to getting counter hit, then that's good for you. As you can tell, it is a very low profile move, so it goes under a lot of stuff. This is one of your main ways of moving around. So you can go under a lot of stuff. And it's also relatively fast. It can also be used as an option to escape from the corner or from an otherwise unfavorable position. Let's say Johnny is coming down at you with his massive JH, which like reaches really low to the ground and it's just like hard to deal with, as you can just get out of the way by using stroke. She doesn't have the option to run under people as an anti-air, because her dash will lift her up and she'll usually get clobbered on the head if you go for that. So being able to stroke in certain situations is pretty useful. The counterpart to the... Oh yeah, and ending block strings with S stroke will not result in a combo unless they're crouching and you hit them with a preceding heavy button. So like on standing, right? If I do 5H S stroke, it won't combo. 2H S stroke doesn't combo either if it's normal hit. But if they are crouching, then it will combo. This is your standard like crouch confirm, mirrorless. And then from there you can do the S stroke follow-up options we discussed. But if they're just blocking, it creates a mini game basically between whether you're going to do H stroke or S stroke. So to explain that, I'll explain H stroke first. So compared to S stroke, it goes farther, it takes longer to start up, and it's a much stronger starter because it launches them and you get like a full combo mid-screen or corner. So it goes under stuff for a long time, big reward and everything. But if you get, there's a long time where you're sliding around the floor and vulnerable to counter hits, so that's the risk of it. It's got 2 FRC points for some reason. One before the hit and one during the hit. So the utility of the first FRC point is you can cancel a stroke with an FRC into a throw. Rather spicy. You know, you do your normal block string, and then yeah, you can do that. There's no FRC on S stroke, by the way. I'm not too familiar with the utility of the second FRC point, which is right when it hits. Looks like that. If you mess it up, you get the red RC. I forgot what the utility of that is. I never really use it. But it is there. I usually only ever use the first FRC, if anything, for that kind of reset. Or you can also 6 FRC 6 it, so you can go stroke into another hover dash, right? So if they're expecting to block low on the stroke, then you hover dash and you hit them high, that kind of thing. One last notable thing about this move, it's jump cancelable on hit or block. Jump cancelable, so you can go straight into like dive as a high, or you can jump cancel. You can jump cancel it into S stroke, like that. So if they've seen a high after H stroke enough times, then you can hit them with that. You stagger them and whatever you can do. You can do whatever after that. Yeah, so those are like the useful things about H stroke, and it can be used similarly in neutral or escaping pressure to S stroke, but it's like slower and it takes longer for you to gain control of Eno. So it's like I would only, yeah, I mean, between using S stroke or H stroke, it depends on the situation and the read and everything. But it's good to know you have both options. Now that I've talked about both stroke versions, I'll talk about the little mini game when you have someone blocking. So if you get someone to block H stroke, then since it's jump cancelable, you can kind of like do a whole bunch of whatever after it. You can do your resets and whatever, pressure resets. It's also +1 on block, so you can attempt like, you know, 5k or some other like faster normal to try and hit them out of stuff. But after a while, they're gonna start learning to simply jump out of it. So I'm gonna have them jump off out of this. So. Oh, is it not? Oh, guard. So they can simply jump out of like a heavy normal, canceled into heavy, stroke the big tree, right? But if you see that they're starting to do this, what you do is you use S stroke the big tree instead. Since it's faster, it'll catch them in their pre-jump frames. And then you can do whatever it is you'd like off of that. So that's the sort of mini game with heavy stroke and S stroke on block. Yeah, I think those are like the essentials for that move. Last special move then is Chemical Low, which is like another signature move of hers. Very funny move. Takes up a lot of space, like about 2/3 screen or so. Probably a little more. And it like takes time to travel. Like think of it as a projectile, like a fireball or something. It does take time to travel. The lasers, the whole thing doesn't hit instantaneously. It actually takes time to travel out of Eno. Another thing worth noting is, let me see if I can get this. So at the start of her active frames, she's actually got a hitbox around her whole body. So that can be used in a couple of key applications. Like let's say if I knock them down, and I'm expecting them to do like a wake up throw in the corner, the classic, right? Yeah, we're gonna do it this way. I messed up. So let's say like I'm in their face and they try wake up throw. If you think they're gonna wake up throw like that, if you HCL in their face, then you get a counter hit horizontal chemical love, which lets you do a full mirrorless combo. Did it too late. You do close ass as a starter. Computer's lagging a lot from all this stuff, but you get the idea. From close ass you can do whatever. It's meterless and it's really good. It gets people to stop throwing, so you can do other stuff like cover dash and land in their face and do low. So that's pretty cool. HCL, you can also do it in the air. Though it's kind of risky to do so in neutral because, like, without FRCing it, because if you do HCL in the air, you can't do anything else until you hit the ground. Wait, no. I think you can air dash. Hold on, I might have lied to you. Yeah, you can air dash, but it takes a while for you to do that. I will HCL in the air if I've got a hard read on them trying to come in on me. That might happen after like I throw a ground hugging note like this. Stuff like that. But I don't use it too much in neutral. It's pretty risky. And even if you do hit them in the air with it, the reward's usually not that good because they can usually tech out before they hit the ground and give you a hard knockdown, so it's usually not really worth it. But it feels really good to snipe someone out of the sky with this. So maybe it is kind of worth it. This is also used a lot in like her infamous FRC 6 HCL 6 FRC 6 combos. So like that's like a whole other thing. If you guys are interested in implementing that into your game, I can do like a whole separate thing on it, but that's like beyond the scope of this for now. There's like a lot of nuances and everything, but yeah, that is there. It can also be used just, even if you don't combo them with it, my computer's really chugging, then you can kind of use it as a pressure reset kind of thing after block 5 H because it is jump cancelable. Oops. Oops. Yeah, if you drop the HCL, then you get JK sticking out. The computer is really chugging. This kind of thing. And off of other jump cancelable or jump installable models, you can do this a similar kind of thing. So yeah, HCL really good for controlling space, for getting knockdowns. On a lot of characters, your sort of go-to, if you kind of just tag them in the scramble, is to combo into 2D and then go into HCL. This works on maybe 2/3 of the cast, and of those 2/3, some of them it's like range dependent. It'll only work if they're close enough. Some characters it just won't work at all, or it'll almost never work. So it's just better going for 2D. Yeah, that's pretty much HCL. HCL meaning horizontal chemical love. So there's also vertical chemical love, which is the same input but with an S. This isn't really used in neutral except to like meme, or as an anti-air kind of thing. So if you think, so if you're coming down at them and you think they might 6P or anti-air you, you can beat that option by hitting them with an even more disjointed attack. Right, so it hits above you and below them and below you. In older versions of Guilty Gear, you can see Eno's doing like knockdown into IAD VCL. I don't really see Eno's do it here now. I think because like the other kinds of Oki proved to be better, but I don't know too much for that point. It's mostly used in combos. It's basically mostly used in combos. Let's see. Like this kind of thing. And it's also used to convert off of your HCL 6F or C6 combos. It's mostly a combo tool, yeah. It can be used in certain situations in neutral, but it's like niche and or a meme, so I wouldn't use it too much. So that is pretty much her specials, and then there's just supers left to cover. I think that's it. This took longer than I thought it was, sorry. But hopefully some of it is useful. Ground supers. This is her reversal. It's only got strike invincibility though at the start. It's got frame 1 strike invincibility, I think for like 8 frames or something. This is a projectile. So it interacts with things the way projectiles do. Something not obvious, you can follow up after it. With like at least an HCL usually, to tack on a little extra damage. It's also plus on block actually. Not significantly, but let me see by how much. Let's see. I'm just going through Dusty. It is +1 on blocks if you block it point blank. But since it's a projectile that moves, you're often much more plus than that in practice. So even if this gets blocked, you can often sneak in something and counter hit them as they try their punish. That's her super on the ground. Her air super is really good. It's really plus on block. Like, how plus? Like, plus 27. It's got 9 frames strike invulnerability, so again, you can be thrown out of it. So it's this move. It goes all around her. It's prime like throw bait, so if you think they're gonna throw you, right? You do this in their face, and they get really badly hit. After you hit someone with it, if you're close enough to them, you can follow up. There's like an abbreviated combo. You can follow up after it. Usually after this, if they block this, then you are plus enough to get a free hover dash mix-up. And by free, I mean it's like uninterruptible, basically. So if you get them to block this at any time, since it's in the air, you can also do it off of like hover dash normals, right? Like this. And if they happen to block that, then you get another hover dash mix-up into whatever. And if it hits, it does huge damage. So overall, really good super. Good to just throw out. It also works as an anti-air. You know, if someone's like trying to catch you, or you know, this kind of thing. Sorry, I'm messing up. I'm doing it too slow. That kind of thing, it'll just blow through strikes. So it also works if you're coming down and someone is trying to hit you from below, right? Bad example, but you get the point. Something like that. But yeah, you can hit people on the way down too. You can hit people above you. It's like it goes all around you. So really good super. If you wanna just kill someone in the corner and you have the meter, like if you want to end the round there then and there, this is a good super to just throw out randomly when you're close enough to them, and then yeah, between the huge plus frames and it like, polluting the screen with like all this stuff, it's pretty good for closing out rounds. Yeah, that's basically that. I think rounds out the description and application of her moveset. I think I'll end it there because this went a lot longer than I thought it would. Um, but if you guys have like specific questions, so I do have videos of B&Bs that I can link to, and if you have any matchup specific questions or any other things you want to ask, we can look at them now or at a later time. So yeah, now I open it to you guys. Do you guys have any questions or situations or whatever you want to talk about? In regards to
Any questions,
you know.
but oh, sorry.
Oh, nothing. I wasn't saying anything. That would lead anything, but yeah, go on.
Oh, yeah. I don't have any questions, but I want to say thanks for making it super comprehensive, and I think it was informative. Gave a lot of context to her moveset, which is relatively slim at first glance, but it's clear that there's a lot more to it than what it may seem at first glance.
Yeah.
Thanks for opening it up and giving some insight into it.
For sure, yeah. It's one of those characters where like a lot of characters have one move that have like they have a lot of moves that kind of just cover a lot of options. Like you can kind of just throw them out. But for a lot of her moves, there's like kind of a divisive opinion on whether her normals or buttons or whatever are good or not, because they are like both good and bad. They're bad in the sense that they're not like some Swiss Army knife kind of tools that can just be used to cover many situations. But a lot of them have very like specific purposes. So I think a lot of the difficulty with playing at least in neutral, is like choosing the right tool for the right situation. And a big part of knowing how to do that is to know like the context of how to use them and what they're good for or bad for in what I was trying to explain. So I think that's like a big part of leveling up your play, just understanding like how to use each tool and how to like select between them. Yeah. That and matchup knowledge. Matchup knowledge is really important too.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but yeah, this was helpful. Like just going into the really basic stuff. Yeah, that's good.
For sure. Yeah, I'm glad it was helpful. Yeah, I was hoping that like by looking at like focusing on the practical applications of all these moves, like would be beyond what they talk about in Deathloop and beyond the obvious stuff, and hopefully give you guys the building blocks to create your own game plans, which I think
Yeah, this was kind of what I was looking for, because it was more of a not like how to deal with very specific situations, but just kind of like this is how things work.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going for pretty much. So I'm glad that part of it got through. Again, this will be on the YouTube for you to like refer back to anytime, and of course you can ask me questions anytime. Like once you start playing more matches with different people, you'll probably have questions of like how do I deal with this, or like why did this not work, or what could I have done to make this work, and we can kind of go from there. But yeah, I'm glad this was like a good sort of general foundation for your future experiences, everyone. Thanks a lot for hanging out, and yeah, hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For sure. Okay, I'll stop